We have a wonderful panel this year, and I'm excited to introduce and bring on stage our panelists today. Our topic that we're going to be discussing is confronting general heart disease and stroke. So at this time, if I can ask our panelists to join Ruth and I today. And we wanted to, like I said, wanted to do it a little bit different and have a more personal conversation. We got a committee together, some input from the community on some questions that we thought you may want to hear. So we've got the panelists. They're going to all kind of share their input on what we're going to be discussing. And so sit back and enjoy, and let's welcome everyone to the stage. I don't know if I grabbed that correctly.
Am I on? I'm on.
Am I on too?
Yes.
We're both on. Okay. All right, good. Well,
So I think the general, I have questions. Obviously, I'm a woman and I have a heart, although sometimes my husband doesn't think so. But that's the thing is, 7.5 billion people on the planet, and we all share things in common. Like, we have a beating heart. Your heart doesn't care how old you are, how much money you're worth, or whatever, but it does like you to eat well and exercise and drink water and those things. So I guess the questions, and I'm not sure who's going to answer this, but so what are the risk factors of heart disease and stroke in general in the United States for women?
and before we get started, if I can kind of I'm going to introduce our panelists.
Yes,
real quick.
absolutely. Sorry.
Nope, you're good. We want to get started, get this conversation going,
Yeah,
right? Are
I'm
you guys
curious.
all- So our first, I want to introduce Dr. Nahas. She actually was one of our models last year, and we're excited to have her back. Had a lot of great feedback, and a lot of people asked to have you back as well. So Dr. Nahas is an assistant clinical professor of gynecology and oncology at University of California, Riverside School of Medicine. That is a mouthful. School of Medicine. She practices at both Riverside University Health System, the Medical Center at Riverside Community Hospital, and in her role at UCR, Dr. Nahas oversees the development and growth of obstetrics and gynecology, as well as the residency program. So she is also the department chair of the Women's Health Department of UCR Health. So welcome.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much. Thank you.
Next, we have sitting next to her is Dr. Al-Khoury. Dr. Lama Al-Khoury earned her medical degree from the American University of Beirut in Lebanon. She completed a residency in internal medicine at the American University of Beirut Medical Center in Lebanon and her residency in neurology at the University of Arkansas Medical Center. Little Rock, Arkansas, sorry. Dr. Al-Khoury then completed a fellowship in stroke at the University of California, San Diego, UC San Diego, and her fellowship in cerebrovascular imaging at UCSD. Dr. Al-Khoury is board certified in neurology and in headache medicine, and she joined UCR Health in August of 2016 as the medical director in clinical neurology at UCR Health. And she also practices at Riverside Community Hospital, and we're excited to have her here with us as well. All right, let's give her a round of applause and welcome her. Dr. Stephen Reyes. We are excited to welcome you here for the first time to Riverside Community Hospital and excited to have you join us. He has specialized in the field of health and bariatric psychology since 2005. He is affiliated with multiple centers of excellence bariatric programs in Southern California, where he conducts pre-surgery psychological assessments and facilitates pre-surgery educational classes. He speaks regularly on the weight loss support groups of Circuit and coaches people online from all over the country, helping them maintain their health. Dr. Reyes is best known for his compassionate coaching and therapeutic approach in helping others with their psychological and physical well-being. So we're excited to have Dr. Reyes here with us today. If we can give him a round of applause. Dr. Mukherjee, welcome. Dr. Mukherjee is an interventional cardiologist that is board certified in the American College of Cardiology, as well as the Society of Vascular Medicine, and has been practicing evidence-based medicine in the Inland Empire since 1991. He is privileged at several area hospitals in Riverside and in San Bernardino areas, including Riverside Community Hospital. Woo! Dr. Mukherjee treats his patients with a high level of skills and expertise in structural heart disease, cardiovascular disease, peripheral vascular disease, and some other areas. Expertise include transcatheter aortic valve replacement, TAVR, MitraClip, PFO closure, and, you want to say that word for me? Was it
Paravalvular leaks.
Thank you. Leak closure. I'll complete that for you. Dr. Mukherjee is the program director for interventional cardiology at the University of California, Riverside School of Medicine. So welcome.
Thank you.
And lastly, we have Fatima, who is here with us today. She works at Riverside Community Hospital in our nutritional department. She graduated with a BS in nutrition from California State University, Long Beach, and completed her dietetic internship with Cal Poly Pomona. She has been working with Sodexo at Riverside Community Hospital since 2018 and has been the lead bariatric dietitian since December 2018. Fatima enjoys learning, teaching patients about nutrition so they can apply it to a happy, healthy life. Wonderful. I think I got them all.
I think you need a drink of water, but big round of applause for all of our learned doctors up here. Thank you. So back to my original question. Sorry. I didn't get my binder, so whatever. You know, I'm blonde.
We'll work together.
So Dr. Mukherjee and Dr. Alkhouri, back to the risk factors. I mean, especially since we're talking about women and the United States. You want to touch on those two things?
Yes, for sure. You want me to start?
Go ahead.
So in general, cardiovascular, the heart and the brain share common risk factors for heart disease and for stroke. High blood pressure is one of the strongest, diabetes, high cholesterol. Other risk factors such as carotid disease, smoking is a big one too. Some patients may have additional risk factors such as obstructive sleep apnea and sleep apnea in general. Those are risk factors that are modifiable and that we could address. There are other modifiable risk factors such as lifestyle that we can talk about in regards to smoking, use of alcohol, substance use as well. But the major thing that we could intervene upon are these risk factors. Identification per patient is what type of risk factors that patient has, and try to alter that and treat it adequately. There are non-modifiable risk factors that we can not modify, thus the name non-modifiable, which one of the biggest ones are age, genetics, ethnicity, and racial background, and things in gender. Women end up having higher risk of stroke than men, and it could be the reason, and Dr. Nahas can emphasize on that, it could be because they have, hormonal, higher hormones and estrogen hormones. It could be because they go through pregnancy. It could be because of oral contraceptives. It could be because of gestational risk factors such as diabetes and eclampsia, things like that. So I'm going to turn to our great cardiologist to comment further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you everybody for taking the time and coming out and spending the morning and afternoon with us. And I'll try and dumb it down and tell you that the pipelines going to the head and the heart are the same. So the risk factors that clog them up are the same. And there's a saying that I found from Johns Hopkins that says, although the genetics are not modifiable, but the genes load the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger. So although genetics are not modifiable, think about the environment. lack of exercise, obesity, smoking, alcohol, drugs, all of those things are your environment, and they're very much modifiable. So that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, and so obviously now that we know what the risk factors are, some you can change and some you can't, but the ones that you can't, you just have to really, really work with the ones that you can so they pull the trigger, in other words. And again, we talked a little bit, but I didn't know until my mother had a TIA about 10 years ago that the symptoms for men and women are very different, right? So talk to us about, I mean, I had a neighbor who thought she had toothache, and it was a jaw, and it was a heart attack.
And a lot of them,
Well-
some of the symptoms that we feel,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
it's things that we
Oh,
feel
I think
all
I
the time.
pulled a muscle in
you
my
know?
neck or whatever.
So
Yeah.
I think we can tag team this one too, and I'll address the heart piece of it, and you can address the neurological symptoms. There's, in fact, a lot of overlap between men's and women's symptoms. The classical, fist on your chest, pain going down the left arm, that's of course classical, but what do you think the percent of even men have that? It's maybe less than 40%. Majority of them have atypical symptoms, and even within men, as men get older, shortness of breath becomes a more predominant symptom. And for women, feeling weak, shortness of breath, some weakness in the arm, back pain, throat pain, feeling faint, are all fair game. What I tell my patients is, if you wear a Mexican poncho and if you have symptoms wherever that poncho is touching you, they're all fair game. So there's no real black and white, but for men, yes, the symptoms tend to be a little more classical, perspiring, chest pain, radiating to the arm and such, and women, more shortness of breath, nausea, feeling faint, and I think women, because they feel such a sense of responsibility, they're sort of the real household of the house. Without them, the man can't run the house. I mean, that's the bottom line. And a lot of the times, they neglect the symptoms. That's, I think, a bigger part of it.
Oh, I'm too busy and I don't matter and I'll deal with me later.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
very true.
And the
Plus,
later never comes,
we
Yeah.
tend to take care of a lot of times. We're focused on work, focused on the family, that we don't go to take care, like you said, take care of ourselves.
Right,
You know?
and again, after my mum had her TIA, her theme tune is now "Love Me Do," because you got to love you before you can care for the family, right?
And I would like to emphasize the fact that I'm glad you mentioned your mom with the TIA symptoms. Women and men too, but women more so, end up to brush off transient symptoms. So if the symptoms go away, and that's typical of TIAs, they say we're good. And they do not know that within those first 2 days and those first 2 weeks and even that first 1 month, their risk of a stroke is way higher by virtue of that warning TIA that happened. So I want to emphasize that TIAs as stroke are a need for a 911 situation because there's an unstable vessel that is waiting to shower emboli or to block fully and cause a devastating stroke. And it's not the mortality in the sense that we worry about. Mortality is a worry, but it's the disability that comes. It's one of the leading causes of disability. Patients end up being in nursing homes, more likely, or dependent on others. So it's sometimes worse than death. So it's important to recognize that even if the symptoms resolve, all caregivers or family members, the patients themselves need to call 911.
Which is what I did, and
Yes.
thank heaven she's fine.
I just wanted to add that for the lay audience, TIA is a transient ischemic attack. It means a mini stroke. And then I think maybe you can expound on the symptoms.
So the old terminology used to be a mini stroke. It's not actually a stroke. A stroke is when you have injured tissue. A TIA does not leave a scar on the brain. However, it carries a higher risk of having a stroke after the TIA happens. So it's a warning, and people are lucky if they have a TIA before the stroke, because God is giving them a warning that you need to seek emergency. We need to call 911. And therefore, the emphasis to recognize the symptoms, and I'm glad you mentioned the cardiac symptoms, because sometimes patients may have concomitantly the cardiac symptoms and the neurological symptoms, because the heart is one of the mechanisms by which a stroke happens. So what are the symptoms of a TIA or a stroke? They share common symptoms. The symptoms could be facial droop, the face looks crooked, patients cannot see or have impaired vision. It could be in one eye, such as amaurosis fugax, that's what we call it, and it's transient sometimes. Sometimes it's in one field of vision in both eyes. Patients cannot speak, cannot understand what's being said, slurred speech, they cannot move an arm or a leg, and occasionally it could be on both sides, so it may be unilateral on one side, could be bilateral. They can lose sensation, face, arm, or leg, or all of the above. They can have balance problems, equilibrium issues. They can have, in general, they can have sometimes back of the brain symptoms such as vertigo, nausea, vomiting, with balance, with coordination, clumsiness. In women in particular, they may have atypical symptoms. And that's why they tend sometimes to ignore, because they're not typical. So they could present with confusion, they could present with loss of consciousness, they could sometimes have a bad, severe headache, generalized weakness, nausea, vomiting, and they may not understand what's going on and may brush it off.
Right. In my mother's case, who's, thank heavens, very smart, and she's super sharp at 90 and runs 2 businesses, I came downstairs, I was on the way to a meeting, to the office, and she said, "Who are you?" And I thought she was messing with me, because she's got a wicked sense of humor. And I went, "Oh, Mom, whatever." And she's like, "I don't have any children." And I'm like, "Okay, 911. I asked her to stick her tongue out, and it was crooked. I'm like, "Okay, we're doing this."
And so that's very important, is the acute symptoms. It's not someone who's demented and gradually having issues. It's someone who is their normal baseline and it hits you suddenly, and that's what a stroke and a heart attack does. It hits you suddenly because there's a blockage or a bleeding into the brain, and it has to be addressed right away. The only way is 911. You should not have any members in the family transport the patient. It should be 911, because time is of essence in treatment. Every minute you delay it, you're going to lose more brain tissue, about 2 million of brain cells, and that's not okay.
So we've got some other questions that we're going to get around to our other physicians. But before I do, because I want to lead into a little bit more into the conversation as we talk about women taking care of their health, being an advocate for their health. What are some of the things that they can do proactively to do that? When it comes to, we're just talking about kind of taking care of yourself and being proactive. Dr. Nahas, Fatima, and Dr. Reyes, this is a question for you. When it comes to weight, what are some of the things that women can do to reduce the risk of heart disease and stroke, such as exercise and nutrition? So I guess we'll start with Dr. Nahas and kind of go around.
I'll leave exercise to him, because probably he's the expert.
Okay, Dr. Reyes, you want to start that?
I'll talk about my favorite, actually, is stress. And it was not mentioned: nutrition, exercise, stress. Stress sneaks on us without knowing. We're stressed all the time without knowing, at work, at home, driving, traffic, waiting, everything. And it's taking over our life without knowing. Expectations in the past were very little. People lived a very simple life. Didn't matter how much they had, the car, the house, they all lived probably the same. And it was more about the environment, the good time, the good talk, the good conversation. Now everyone, the generation, the worst, on the phone, comparing themselves to celebrities, including my kids. They just want to be rich like tomorrow. I'm like, and that is very stressful to them, because they don't achieve it, they fail, they struggle, they're stressed at work, they're stressed at school. I have a question, like, why do I have to study? These celebrities don't do anything, and they're like, this is one of the example. Us being a super mom, you want to be everything. You want to be the wife, the mom. You want to be the excellent at work if you're doing work, school, and everything. I see some of the moms taking their kids, which is great, but then you have to be mindful of you, because they take their kids to like 5 different, at least, activities and running around, and that's very stressful. So That's the most things that I really am advocate about. I try to do some videos on YouTube to advise my colleagues as well, the work-life balance, but it doesn't necessarily mean the work we do. Everything is work, being at home, cooking, preparing your kids to school, it's all work, so just don't forget yourself in the process.
My late sister-in-law, Linda McCartney, who was a fantastic photographer amongst many things and a great mom and what have you, she used to say to me, just take literally 2 or even 3, if you can spare them, minutes every day, no matter where you are. If you can go outside, even better, just look up. Mm-hmm. You will see we all operate in this kind of zone, you know, that's why people trip over and, you know, twist their ankles and things, because we're all just working here. If you just go outside and look up and just do some deep breathing and just think about you for 2 minutes, if you can then work that into every couple of hours, if you can work it into once an hour, that really will reduce your stress, because you just think about the bigger picture and how many Instagram likes really don't matter.
I love my Apple Watch, and Dr. Reyes, I got a new Apple Watch last year, and I'll be going throughout my day, and it beeps and tells me, okay, take time to breathe. And I actually have stopped, and when I do, I feel so much better.
Yep.
You can just feel the stress and the weight just kind of letting off. Dr. Reyes.
Yeah, gosh, to piggyback on everything that was just said, your last point there, Cherie's right. Sometimes we have to breathe on purpose. It's amazing, something so vital to us we take for granted at times. And what she just described too, I mean, life gets in the way of life. We're distracted by so many different things in our given day. And with the people who I've worked with for the last 16 years struggle with having obesity, so they typically have weight issues. And what we usually, the foundation we set with these folks, basically they come in, if there's a psychological profile for these people who struggle with their health, struggle with their weight management and all that, they're self-neglectors. And what that means is they're very good at taking care of other people, not so much themselves. And so for them to change anything behaviorally, if you think about it, it's almost counterintuitive. Because now they have to be selfish. And one of the coolest things about my job, I get to tell people, I give them permission to be selfish. And so often, people who are so good at taking care of other people, it seems, like I said, so unnatural for them to do that very thing. And, we always remind them that, self-care is not selfish. It's not. And we need to remember, and, a few of the panel members already alluded to this today too, particularly with, women that I worked with over the years, they're the hubs. And we don't realize, and we probably undervalue, when they're healthy, everyone around them is affected by them being healthy, so that's their incentive right there. So establishing themselves as a priority is number one, maintaining it long term.
And Fatima, when it comes to diet and nutrition, what can you say as far as some of the things that women can do to help reduce stress there?
Yeah, you had mentioned weight too, and I think that we talk a lot about weight and finding a certain number on the scale, but I believe that it's not just about weighing a certain number or achieving that weight goal, but it's about maintaining that healthy lifestyle throughout. So be that with a healthy lifestyle and eating and exercise, and the American Heart Association recommends 150 minutes of exercise per week. So it's about 20 or 30 minutes a day, and getting that in a way that's maybe not a burden to you. So if you don't like going to the gym, don't go to the gym. If you prefer to, walk the dog or walk in your neighborhood or find a group of friends and do a workout video. So finding those small ways in your life where you can incorporate things like exercise that don't become a burden on you. And diet as well. So incorporating your healthy, high fiber foods, whole grains, fresh fruits and vegetables into your diet and making that a lifestyle. So not just until for the next year I'm going to eat healthy and then I'm going to weigh a certain number of pounds and then I'm going to go back to my old habits, but maintaining those, making those small gradual changes with diet, with exercise, with stress, with sleep too, even making sure that you're getting the adequate sleep, all play a role in making sure that we're preventing, diseases, or if we do have those diseases, to maintain them so they don't get any worse.
I always just, diets don't work if you're on them for 30 or 90 days, right? It's lifestyle changes. And it's very simple math. If you've ever done a spreadsheet or balanced your bank account, if you are, what I'm trying to do is you just consume less, put less in, and put more effort out, eat less, move more, and the math will do itself, right?
And diets a lot of times are short term. So if you follow this diet for 30 days, you're going to lose this much weight. And then what happens after that, a lot of them we can't maintain those diets throughout our lives. So finding ways to make small, gradual changes so that we can maintain them and live a healthy lifestyle rather than a healthy 3 weeks and then going back to where we were before.
As a woman, as a mom, it's very important because I love cooking, and I used to cook everything I wanted, which is delicious meals, and usually delicious meals means a lot of calories, and I wasn't mindful of what I'm putting in my diet, and we were lucky because the kids were still young, and but then now, from learning from others, it's very important. My choice of what I'm preparing for them will be part of them. So everything is replaced by, again, never dieting because that's not sustainable. You want something for life. So just the healthier choices, and you explain it to them and make it delicious. And there are tons, you can use social media in a positive way, learning all the available recipes that will be low cost, low carb, low everything, but still delicious.
We had a team, one of the breakout sessions earlier, and how many of you had a chance to stop by the breakout sessions that we had on how to eat healthy and shop healthy on a budget? Anybody? Because one of the main things that I hear a lot of times is it's too expensive to shop healthy, but we don't have a problem spending $20, $30, $40, $50 on a plate that's full of
Drive-through,
tons of carbs,
even.
junk food.
Yeah.
Yes, when you add it all up, it totals, so really making those healthy and wise choices.
Right. I mean, I walked over here this morning from the hotel, and there's a gorgeous farmer's market outside with all locally grown organic vegetables, great prices. I mean, cheaper than any of the supermarkets I've seen in LA. And it's a sustainable circle, right? So it's local. It's not using fuel to get here. You're sustaining local businesses. You're eating healthy, and you're saving money. And
Right.
take the kids to the farmer's market. It's a good day out.
Yeah.
I wanted to sort of give you two takeaway or take-home messages. One is, you talk about the 30 minutes of exercise every day. 10,000 steps on an Apple Watch doesn't mean you exercise for half an hour. That half an hour should be dedicated where your mind is off work and it's for you, and walk 30 minutes and break out a sweat. Don't just, stop halfway. And so it's continuous 30 minutes of walking and your mind is with you, not at work.
Right, well,
That's number one. Number two is, the food industry, of course, has all these prepackaged goods and things, easy to eat, TV dinners, this and that. So what I tell my patients is when you go shopping, you're only allowed to shop in the periphery. Don't go in the aisles. That's where the poisons are kept.
Boundaries.
So
Boundaries.
if you think about it, when you go outside, what do you get? Fresh vegetables, your lean meats and dairy. Don't go in the aisles. Those are my two takeaway messages.
No, that's great. And yeah, so what you mean is my 10,000 steps, if I'm walking around a shoe store, they don't count?
Also, to piggyback, you mentioned TV dinners, and those are convenient because you just take them out, you stick them in the oven or in the microwave. But I recommend making your own TV dinner, so you can purchase, in bulk, your vegetables, your meats, your starches, prepare them into smaller meals and put them in the freezer. And then whenever you need a quick, convenient meal, that's something that is you made it yourself, so it's not high in fat, it's not high in sodium or any preservatives that have been added, and you're getting a convenient and healthy meal. So it can be quick and it can be cheap. It doesn't have to be expensive. It's just finding those right ways to incorporate those into your life, and for many of us, into our busy lives.
That sort of pre-answered the next question I had for you, with what factors play into, bad eating habits and so on. And it's busy lives, right? I mean, it's very tempting to just grab it out the freezer aisle, or the poison aisles, I'm going to call them now, and jam it in a microwave. But I cook once a week. Sundays, I just cook for the whole week. Takes me about 4 or 5 hours, but then there's always like fresh vegetable soup or something, something to go to. Wash all the vegetables in salt and vinegar water, sea salt, and scrub everything. And it's just there, and it's easy, and it's a grab and go thing.
Yeah, there's a behavioral principle at work here too that she pointed out, being preemptive and proactive. You know, not leading it up to convenience or choice, because we're all slaves to convenience. You know, when we don't adequately prepare and do all that, that's the position we put ourselves in. We talk about preemptive eating, how, in fact, there's a little saying we use in my industry, you know, stay ahead of your hunger. Because if you give your body what it needs, it's not going to tell you what it wants, because those are two distinct things. And we've all experienced in this room, anytime we've gone long periods without eating or with skip meals and our blood sugar level drops, we're different creatures. We make different choices.
Hangry,
so
they
staying
call
ahead
it,
of the
right?
game, exactly. Snickers nailed it. Snickers is not the solution, but they nailed it in their ad campaign for sure. But, you know, stay ahead of your hunger, be preemptive, be proactive, give yourself those options that are going to work for your benefit.
Never go in a supermarket when you've been fasting.
One thing I wanted to mention though is never, like some patients tell me, oh, I cook very healthy, I cook vegetables and stuff, but they fry them. So I always discourage them, no fried food and eat fresh. Oh, I eat a lot of olive oil, I cook with olive oil. You need to eat it fresh. You should not be frying your food. So that's another thing.
Good piece of advice. I hear that. You
That's
got
right.
the fried vegetables that you get at the country fair, right? At the LA County fairs and all. I don't think that's very
Oh, they
helpful.
do it deep fried everything.
Yeah,
It's
deep
crazy.
fried everything. Doesn't count. So
It's crazy.
We've got about like 5 more minutes before
Okay.
we get ready to go. And we're going to go into question number 5 there.
Sure. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, this is addressed to everybody. What are the 5 most damaging things we can do to ourselves to contribute to heart disease and stroke? I think I know the answers, but I'm learning so much today. I'd like to hear them again.
Stress.
Stress.
Food, bad food.
Stress, bad food.
Did you say stress?
Yeah.
Oh, dang it. It's supposed to be mine. So, self-neglect.
Self-neglect.
Obesity. You know, the CDC has declared that an emergency for the country. 40% of adults are now obese, BMI over 30. And kids between 2 and 19, 20% are obese. And obesity is equal to sleep apnea, heart disease, strokes.
Diabetes.
The list goes on and on. Arthritis, hypertension, diabetes. So
Okay.
Fatima.
You put me at the end, so everybody got all the good answers.
But you had more time to
But
think
not
about it.
seeking any preventative measures, so not seeing doctors even before you're starting to have symptoms, not seeing a dietitian if you're concerned about how to eat healthy. So seeking those preventive measures before so you know to watch out for stress and neglect and sleep and diet and all of these things prior to having to be concerned about them.
And I think that's a good segue into one of the questions that I wanted to ask. So Clarissa shared her story about how she had found out that she was diagnosed with heart disease at the age of 13. And I know there's, age, wanted to hear your input on age, but can you talk to us about, which is our focus today, how important it is to make sure that your family is informed as we talk about breaking those cycles of generational heart disease, how important it is to make sure that your family is informed about heart disease and stroke issues that are hereditary. Start, I guess, Dr. Mukherjee, we'll start with you.
I think it's extremely important because when kids or young adults present with heart disease, they generally have an underlying abnormal lipid state, so the cholesterol and the fats in the blood are high, and that is usually genetically transmitted, and it's autosomal dominant, meaning you can get one gene from one of the parents and you have it. If you get both, then these kids don't even survive teenage. So that's at that extreme, and then if it runs in the family, like I told you, then the gun is loaded. You gotta be very careful about your environment.
Well, and also talk to us about making sure, like I said before, a lot of us sometimes don't want to share the information. We don't want to burden our other family members, or we're maybe just to be embarrassed about what's going on in our life. But if it is something that is hereditary, and making sure that we do find out the information about it, sharing that with our daughters or our children or our sisters, because it's something that they could be affected by as well. So can you talk
Yeah,
a
and
little bit?
preemptively talk to your doctor about screening early.
Okay.
I guess identification of the family risk factors from both sides of the story, from parents, and seeing what their children can inherit from them, and then educating the children and making sure that the lifestyle since childhood is a proper lifestyle, and that they're not, they're active always and exercising. That's something we can put in our kids to be always doing sports and not eating junk food and not eating sugars. I think that's a good way of bringing them up. And identification of what your family tree is, that's important.
And sugar is one of the hardest addictions to quit, right? People who've quit smoking have told me, I just can't get away from sodas. It's really a hard thing to do. So don't feel like you're a failure if you're trying to cut out the sodas and you just have to have one, once every 6 months or something, because it's tough. It really is hard. I was a Coca-Cola freak for 1,000 years, and I just woke up one morning and went, this is stupid. I love me. I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna stop. Haven't had one in 3 years, I guess. I don't know.
That's awesome. I think also not ignoring family. I'm a cancer doctor, but it's the same with cardiac diseases. Sometimes we know half of our family died young. Even if they're not diagnosed with anything, that's not normal. When you die sudden death and young, then you investigate. Take the ownership, all of you here in the room. Take the ownership, know more, ask more questions, educate and get the knowledge, because if it is, and this is running in your family, you pay even more attention. And then you go to, maybe there are something that could be discovered, and you need more routine checkup.
Yep.
I think one of the questions I think we'll probably end on is what roles, and maybe this is for Dr. Nahas, what is the role of self-care for women that we can do to ensure that we are there for our families and able to optimize our health? And being OGBON, that you can speak to that maybe a little bit more.
Well, for women without risk factors and family history, most of us with the hormones having protective mechanism against heart diseases and cardiovascular diseases, except if there are family history or risk factors, does not protect us 100% if we don't have a healthy lifestyle, right? So let's say you have all of it and then menopause hits. You shouldn't ignore it. You should seek the appropriate advice. You shouldn't suffer with menopause. If it's easy on you, then you don't need any treatment. But if it's not easy on you, if you struggle, the whole family struggle. Seek the appropriate advice. Know your hormonal therapy. A combination of hormonal therapy is usually more risky than a single hormonal therapy. So, and unfortunately, not all physicians are educated into giving you the appropriate hormonal therapy. With us, we trust our physicians as we should, but then some of them are not as exactly. So all what we need, if you ever needed the hormonal therapy, is the estrogen, and the progesterone could be always local. Locally in the uterus, there are tons of devices. It's not a forum to discuss that, but I'm happy to answer questions later on. But there's a lot of knowledge that you can help yourself with. Don't ignore yourself. Be the leader in the family of when it comes to organizing exercise trip. That means, come, let's go walk together. No, you're gonna leave the phone and you're gonna come with me. No, otherwise you're grounded. No TV at the evening. Be a champion for when it comes to meals. Prepare healthy meals for yourself and for the whole family. If you're not stressed, everyone is not stressed. And if you're stressed, God help the rest. So like you are it.
Well, I mean, I often think about the women in the home as the queen bee in the hive, right? Mm-hmm. The queen bee dies, the hive disappears.
Right, exactly.
So 100%. Give bees a chance. Oh, see what I did there?
Well, Ruth and I would like to thank all of you for joining us. Did you guys enjoy that today? Get some good information, all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on today's panel. There is information on all of our physicians in your book, their bios. We have a call center that if you're looking for a physician, Riverside Community Hospital has some wonderful physicians, as you see up here. There's a number on there that you can call at our website where you can find more information about our physicians. So thank you, all of you, for joining us today.